Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 474. Your government trust. Definitely had to do this episode. Definitely got whether it's a lot of consultations recently, whether it's consultations in the past asking about this subject. So this episode may be for you, may not be for you. It's dedicated to the consultations in the future and in the past that have come and asked about whether it's a government trust account or just some government trust. So we're going to talk about it. A lot of people reach out to this channel for trustee training. And so we're going to talk about the topics at hand. So the topic at hand is your government trust. It's interesting that we still answer this question to this day. Once again, we're kind of surprised it's still in the ether or the internet. Uh, but nevertheless, it's okay. We still answer these questions. We're going to address it and start out by saying this is some entitlement mentality. Your government trust. Your government trust is an entitlement mentality, meaning that the government is supposed to provide something to you. Now, granted, some people might think, some people might feel that money is supposed to come to them, maybe randomly out of the universe, whether people know it or not. Oh man, the government's created bonds and the citizens are in debt and all this other stuff. Well, when it comes down to it, when we talk about the private sector, it seems as though the private sector has it very correct, which is trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. So when we talk about someone owes something, how can you owe something if you have nothing? See, these are the challenges that people run into with these type of thought processes and philosophies, and they say, "Oh well, the government, there's some government trust for me." Okay, supposedly, there's supposedly some government trust for them through their birth certificate, through the social security. We're not saying this is accurate. This is what the questions that we get in trustee training. These are the questions that we get in the consultations. In the past, as of recent, still in 2023. It's been in the universe for years. Oh, get your redemption packet. Get your redemption mail. It sounds religious. It sounds dogmatic. You have to know the facts. Does the government owe people something? We want to know what makes people think they can live in something that they didn't build. And then there is an exchange of value. It's called currency. We've denominated energy into currency. You exchange a certain amount of value energetically, you receive a certain amount of dollar bills energetically, physically. So we're here once again at one of those moments in time where people say, "Oh, the government trust." That's what they do. They come on the line. They might instead of the episode being your government trust, it could be my government trust, because that's what they say. My this and my that. When you see the politicians, how do they speak of it? They're managing it, right? They're managing the contracts in place, right? Are you, what they say, oh, this is what the old Moors used to say, oh, I gotta sign a contract and sue juris in personam. I gotta know the Latin. I gotta know the etymon of the words. So then you run through that hoop. And then where do you get? You get back to the system of building wealth, managing wealth, passing along wealth. It's a system. Just like the public school system, the traditional school system, they got a private system. Traditionally, families hold those systems to themselves. The country is made up of families and individuals. Some families covet the information. See, people keep going back to that. Oh, we live in the information age. We found out that the government might have created some money out of thin air, out of nowhere, because I was born. Okay, how do you think it paid for your medical expenses if your parents couldn't afford it? The government trust, the welfare trust, created out of nowhere. We just got to go ahead and create the government trust for you because your parents might not be able to afford a birth. I didn't want to give my kids a social. One of my kids don't have a social. That's nothing new. We know plenty of people that had grown up in certain parts of the country and don't have socials. But see, we're going to go ahead and shake the skinny. As the mentors used to talk to us on the line and say, well, trust Christian, once you give up the social, you won't be able to get a loan to go to school. These are from the same mentors that paid their way through school. They don't have government loans. But oh no, no. I don't want you to hurt yourself in the big bad world of building it on your own. Building your last name, not your first name. Like I did. That's what they really should be saying. But they don't want to hurt your feelings because they don't want you to go through the hard rigors of being responsible as the what? Trustee of your life, the trustee of your family estate. What do you mean? Who's in charge of the family estate? Might as well say the government. Why? Because if you die without a will, not legal advice, you die intestate. And if you die with a will, you die in probate. That means the state still administers the estate. That's not private. That's called the state. It's public. It's your government trust. It's the welfare trust. It's the trust that says, I'm not competent, but I want to sign sui juris. I want to be in personam. I don't want to be associated with a debt. I don't want to be associated with debt notes. Did you go through a private education class yet? Oh man, this is definitely not a hard one. Investing in your private education is making yourself be in good standing in the private perspective and in the public perspective. Your government trust. What are you saying? The government owes you money out of nowhere because you were born? Oh man, well, if it wasn't for me, how would they have money? I don't know. Maybe you do something. Then there's an exchange, there's a need for money. When you do something, you have a need for the money. But oh no, no. We got to think a little bit differently. Are we in the space of entitlement? Trustees have a perspective of finding out what the trustee is and serving. That's what the trustee has. They have a position in the perspective of serving. They're not thinking about their first name. If this is a hard concept to grasp, trusteeship's not for that individual. So it's easy for them to hand over their money, hand over capital. For the ones that reach out to the vault, say, oh, I want to go through trustee training. We know that these people are fairly acting in a position of wanting to be responsible, have responsibilities, uh, large responsibilities at times, Families reach out all the time and have $1 million easy in assets. What's so interesting is we are seeing a wealth transfer go in front of our face because we are seeing people, millennials, receive assets and literally, and we don't want to say to go crazy because even if you receive a small amount of assets, these individuals or otherwise, what are they doing? Are you able to receive assets in the right position? Because they didn't. And not to say they went crazy. They didn't go crazy. They just didn't do they fumbled the ball. In the sport called football, in American football, they fumbled the ball. It fell out of their hand. They had the asset in their hand and it fell in their hand. It was like sand. It went through their hand. They didn't hold their sand. It went through their hand. Oh man, guess what? Whether you all know it or not, some of these people still hold the assets, but they're holding it in the incorrect position and they're hurting because now what would be considered an asset is a liability. We've even had some seniors recently come on the line. Oh, I got $1 million worth of assets, and I just don't want to leave them to my kids because I don't think they're going to be responsible. Boy, oh boy, do we hear it all the time. Why do you have to leave your assets to, like your government trust? Why do you got to leave it to the wrong people? Why do you have to have other people involved? Oh, I got to have other people involved because, that's the system, right? Well, if it's your government trust, it's the public trust. That's it. And people reach out to the vault for private trustee training. That's what they reach out to the vault for. You can get the email in the description. Feel free to reach out. Christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian@trustchristian.com. But once again, we get these emails all the time. We get these conversations come on the line all the time. And we're addressing it for free. The public sector. Oh, everybody wants to be a part of the government trust, right? The government trust. Let the government take care of this. Let the government take care of that. So where's the private sector? And whether you know it or not, the private came before the public. So of course it's going to be alive and well. Finance is moving. Money is moving. Currency is moving. Sometimes people think they're going to come into the private sector and they don't have to make any capital move. Is that what the government trust told you? That in the private sector, you come into the private sector, there's going to be a private sector trust for you? Yeah, that's your family estate. That's the private one. But oh no, no. If you keep it out in the public, everybody knows. Then it's not private family estate. It's public family estate. Your government trust. I don't want that one anymore, Trust Christian in the vault. I really don't know. I don't want to be the beneficiary, but I'm almost trying to make my kids the beneficiary. But at the same time, I don't want to be the beneficiary. Why do you think you deal with the liability? Because you're the beneficiary. The beneficiary deals with the liability, not the trustees. Doesn't seem like the politicians are dealing with the liabilities. Right? Is this the ruling class, the politicians, versus the common man? Common man doesn't mean you're poor. It doesn't mean that. But the politicians went to law school. So now there's a lay and there's a lawman. The lawman does know the law. Do you know the law? Do you know the law? This is what it comes down to. All of grace knows some part of the law. Oh, they didn't teach me in what? Public school. So you got to go to the what? Private education. So you can get the private guidance and a private direction. Oh man, I don't know how much that's going to cost me. How much does a class cost at a college? People are in hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and they're doctors. Guess what? They're hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and they're lawyers. Debt. Not positive, negative for a piece of paper. You still got to put effort out. So you're gonna leave it up to the guy that went to school or the lady that went to school and they're in debt to administer your case? Oh, you can't ask that question. Why not? Why wouldn't you want someone that's mentally free financially? And guess what? There are plenty of lawyers out there. But guess what? There's also lawyers that are in debt that will do anything to get your money to pay the school loans. Oh, don't say it like that. Don't put out that type of propaganda. What are you talking about? You can read Newsweek, any Wall Street Journal, any of the major news publications, and they will tell you that law students come out with debt. They don't all come out with no debt. And some of them still go straight into the courtroom, otherwise practice, and they practice. Because they're practicing. What a mentor is, classic mentor, will say, oh yeah, we would practice cases before we had them, and I've never lost any. And I've had over 100 cases. We don't even really want to tell people how many cases they've had, but they've had a lot of cases, and they've won them all. No one will want to hear that. Why? Because they don't believe in the power of practice. They don't believe in the power of knowing that when you're going in the courtroom against law people, all law is not known. So when you present pieces of evidence, oh, okay, well, they were practicing and they didn't know about it. Right. Oh, who's the ruling class? The business class. The people that create the jobs. The people that fund the politicians. Your government trust. Let's put some money in the government trust so we can fund the public school education. Right. How are they still complaining about teachers not being paid enough 50 years into, 70 years into the Board of Education Act? Oh, the teachers union is supposed to be one of the strongest unions in the states. Definitely. These are a feared group of people, whether you know it or not. The teachers union. But they didn't supposedly get adequate pay in 70 years. Still to this day. Is the education not funded enough? But the Fortune 500 companies have billions. They're up to trillions. But people are running around. The government's trillions of dollars in debt. But then people want to trust from the government that they could discharge the debt. So what does that mean? You just gonna make money leave out of circulation for your benefit? Once again, beneficiary. Once again, liable. Beneficiary of the debt system. People want to be the beneficiaries. Yeah, if I give my government trust, I'm gonna be able to discharge debt. Right? And then the government trust, they're taking money out of circulation, supposedly. Taking money out of circulation. How's that good? Who's accounting for that? Are you accounting for that? Are people aware of how to do the accounting for that? This is where we are. For the people that come on the line, are you aware of the accounting for that? We talk to people about securities lawyers all the time. Do they have that? Do they have people close and near that you can ask those questions to at least? Legitimate people that have their licenses right now. People that may have had them in the past. Getting senior quality information. Instead of just Googling, oh, the government owes me some money. The government created a trust. Oh, sure they did. Who created? And then they go, oh, my parents were the grantor. So can you rescind it? But then how am I going to get credit? How am I going to get a house? How am I going to get a car? How am I going to get a loan? It's me and my again. It's back to my government trust. Aren't they supposed to allow me to do something that I'm not able to do right now, which is to get personal debt? Right. The government trust allows you to get what? Public debt. Then go bankrupt like a Fortune 500. Really, they weren't Fortune 500s, but these companies going belly up year after year, year after year, year after year. Every year somebody's going bankrupt. Well, I'm afraid to go bankrupt, but the companies are doing it all the time. We're in the age where a billion used to be a lot. Guess what? Going $1 billion bankrupt, that's not abnormal now either. Going $1 billion bankrupt. We're in $1 billion bankrupt. We're $1 trillion bankrupt, right? Isn't that what people say? They don't understand M1, M2, M3. They never heard of these things. They don't really know the full definition of them. But they want to say, hey, this is all a bad situation. Right, because that's fear. It's fear in the marketplace then. Oh, let's talk about the fear narrative. Oh, it's not enough money. Oh, there is too much money. Oh, we need to create new money and all this stuff. We're not saying the system's perfect, but it allows people to live very comfortably right now. Thing is, people don't really know what the government is. They don't understand the government because they don't understand the law. And when you gain an understanding of the law, when you gain an understanding of the government, which is very important, very, very, very important. When those things are understood, life becomes a little bit, as we would like to say, easier. Because you understand the rules to the game. How are you going to play the game properly if you don't know the rules to the game? Some people say, oh man, I didn't sign a contract to get a social security number. I didn't sign it. My parents gave me a social security number. Right. But did you rescind it? Did you send it back? Did you give it up? Did you give up the benefits? Did you read the Social Security Act to know the benefits? Oh no, don't say that in the public. Why would you say that? Everybody should have one of those. Really? What do you mean should? There are people living without it. When did this become a have to? That's like saying you, as the people would try to come into the program and say, well, I don't need money. You're right. You need assets. You need cash flow. But we don't always need the term of legal, what people call money. And even if that's the case, there can be many forms of it. Once again, an asset can be that. Cash flow is a form of that. But some people think they need to really see it and touch it. This is definitely a mentality. People might be sitting around wondering how I'm going to get some free money. Well, free money comes with a cost. Because money has a cost. People come to us all the time, oh, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. We're like, well, do you know the legal term of these things? Once again, the law. Oh no, I don't know if I need to know that. Well, that already shows what's going on in question. People know they need to know it. People want to jump to conclusions, or they say this the woke culture, right? This is the woke culture. We're awake. We know that this could be a Ponzi scheme. This could all be a figment of our imagination. Right. Whatever. Nevertheless, for the ones of us that are stuck in here in this reality for a second, we're very aware that there's an intelligence. We actually have to be intelligent. We have to read. We have to be able to comprehend what's being, the language system that you're in. There's many different language systems, so you got to just be aware that contract, words, all that type of stuff. We're speaking words. People know they get caught up on their words. In the beginning was the word. So you got to know the word. But how many people are strayed from knowing the word and learning the word? Oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna learn the definitions of this legal stuff. It's almost like the only muscle with the Volca share for the rest of the year is you literally learning the dictionary of the legal dictionary and definitely picking a quality legal dictionary. How do you live in a system and don't know the words? People say, oh man, I know the words. I know the words. You might as well say you know slang. Everybody knows slang. There's a dialect wherever you go in the world, a dialect. But do you know the formal language of the jurisdiction? Not the informal, the formal language. Oh man, I'm in the trustee system. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to be private. You're gonna hear everything when they come on the line, right? Well, we're talking about it. You say your government trust. What does that mean? The government has a trust. You can't close it if you're the beneficiary. No, I can't close it. Oh, okay. So can you stop accepting benefits? Yeah. Are you going to do that? Well, what would be the benefits? People know what the benefits are. See, this is the mark of a great entrepreneur. Because you've heard a lot of people go poor and you've heard billion-dollar companies go bankrupt. So that means they don't have it anymore. The mark of a great intellectual human being is actually figuring it out. You figuring it out. Period. Oh man, I don't know how to operate without a social, man. I gotta turn my life into a business. I got a job. I don't know my skills. I don't know my talents. I don't know my abilities. I don't know that I gotta go out and create a business because that is what privacy all is definitely start the beginning. That's the beginning, trust Christian in the vault. So I gotta go out. I gotta make sure that I got a business in place. I gotta use the talents and abilities that my family has given me, that I have in my blood, that I have in my DNA. I gotta do that. Yeah. I gotta lock in on creating for the family and not getting up and possibly giving power away. Possibly. And guess what? In the private sector, you still do joint ventures. In the private sector, you still do general partnerships, GPs. You do GPs, JVs. You do all these type of projects. You do many of these different type of projects where you work with people in a venture, in a partnership, a LP, a limited partnership. Many of these things happen in the private sector. So it's not unaccustomed. Oh, when I get over there, I'm gonna be lonely in the water. I'm gonna be waiting in the water. I'm trying to convince my family. I'm trying to convince my friends at work that got a job that don't want to really move into the private because then that means they got to create and we both might not have a job. We might have businesses, right? Small businesses, medium-sized enterprises, maybe bigger. Because I'm going to build generational wealth, trust Christian in the vault. You know what generational wealth is. That's $1 million. I'm going to get that to my kids in an insurance policy. If I go right now, they at least got $1 million. And we said we've seen people go crazy with 30. And if you haven't prepared the successor or the next generation, what makes you think yours, if they're not prepared for 1 million, what system do you have in place? People contact us, they got blended families. That's not what you mean. This has happened for years now. Your government trust. Yeah, we got to figure that out again. Or are we going to keep using the state? The state created entity for us because the state created entity is a welfare based entity. If you only knew that the numbers panned out pretty much statistically all the way through, whether we tried to control it or not, the families that get it and do the proper things, they get the proper results. That's that. It's a system. It's going to work without you. The government trust is it going to work without you? If you're not paying into it, how long can you receive out of it? Who created the rules for it? Can you amend the rules for it? Well, we've talked about this enough today. Your government trust, giving the people some thought, food for thought about what they think the government is sitting in some contract with when they literally have the contract for you to read. It's called the, whether if you want to call it the social, if you want to know the origins of the birth certificate, you can figure out all those things. But what happens when you figure out as a trustee of your family estate that you're going to have to grow assets? You're going to have to get someone to grow the assets, but you're going to have a system in place to make that happen. Appreciate you, Arthur, for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens, and in the replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you listening live or listening to replay from. This is one of those easy topics. Your government trust. You got more than half the population walking around thinking that the government knows them something. Yeah, and when you think the government knows you something, now you can see why the country might say that it's trillions of dollars in debt. Oh man, really? Yeah. How about what they say? Each citizen is assigned a number. They each have a number of a so-called certain amount. What do you mean each citizen? What? They didn't denominate it to where now you're all created what? Equal. You're all created equal. That's called a debt slave. They didn't want to say it, but usually with debt comes shackles. It's called a liability. It's called a burden. Wealthy know about these things. The people that don't understand these mechanisms, systems of usury, these terms, the what is it? The what do they call it? The language system. But hold on, the politicians are lawyers. So it seems like there's a group of people that have a good grasp on the system. Right. Some people say, oh, I don't like the system, but they don't leave. They didn't do enough research to go find another system. They don't want to use enough public debt notes to leave and move. Why do I gotta move? Because you're in a jurisdiction where most people are actually adhering to the rules. But guess what? We can see why people might be frustrated because they don't fully know the rules. They think that they have a sense, they have a feel, they have a thought. I don't really know everything. I don't know what I don't know. And they didn't train me about the private sector. They didn't train me about my family supposed to giving me an inheritance through a certain type of structure. I didn't hear that in what, public school? Right. You didn't hear about it in public school. No problem. Well, now you know there's private alternative education. Why would it not be private alternative education? It has to be that. Because there's a public education. And the private alternative education, whether you say disadvantage or not, is your family or a family giving you that education. So we have a training system because we've learned from families. We sit in a room with even some families still to this day. When you sit in a room with families that are generations deep, you really need to listen. So you got this far. Hopefully, we can make sure we can get a few generations or generations like you. That's how it works. That when they say humble, that's when you for sure are listening because you're in an environment where these people, they never are gonna. What government trust? What are you talking about? They already told you they're high net worth investors. They already told you they were generational wealth holders. How do they depend on the government trust? How do they deal with those things? But I wanted to have that mindset, trust Christian and focus. I was going to go private. So now I know when private, that means wealthy. So I got to invest in my private wealth education. Right. Or are you paying for cable? Public programming. That's where we are in the world. People. The age of information. Your government trust. I found out that the government's got a trust. And they didn't tell me about it. And I'm using it as a beneficiary. Whoa, okay. I'm using it as a beneficiary, trust Christian in the vault. And I don't want to be a beneficiary. I'm looking to be the trustee. That's private family trustee training. That's trustee training. Private wealth education. It's a continuing education program, whether you know it or not. We're going to go ahead and give it to people straight up. It's a continuing education program. If we see people coming in the room wealthier than us, how you going to not show up? If they wealthier than you and they showing up, how you not gonna show? And what are they talking about in the room? Oh, we're talking about cannabis, or we're talking about, different, alternative investments in real estate. We're talking about commercial real estate that everybody says is the underwater. Oh, commercial real estate's dog crap. Okay. And they're talking about it in the room, the high net worth investors, the ones that provide the malls, the strip malls that supposedly were going to die, that didn't die yet, that had record numbers at the end of 2022. They have record numbers at stores for many reasons. Wow. Well, hopefully this is like a good situation where people really realize that, yes, it, 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 let's say government and private, they don't mix. Government and private, they don't mix. What'd you say? Oh wow, I gotta stop using it. I gotta stop being in the government, in the public. Right. We did an episode about that private side lifestyle. Why not? Come on, trust Christian. What I like getting speeding tickets. I like driving cars and getting speeding tickets. I don't want to get a speeding ticket, but I like doing more than the speed limit, so I get speeding tickets. Okay, have at it. People should go do their research on how wealthy people operate with their vehicles, just alone. Oh, you got all these guys on the internet saying, oh man, put it in this, put it in that. Okay, once again, we're talking about truly wealthy people. oh man, they got enough money. They don't really be driving. They don't really do all of that stuff. Trust Christian in the vault. Right. So are you thinking like that? The more you do that, sounds like you'll be that. Well, people like mortgages in the public so they can brag and say, oh yeah, I own that house right there. I got a mortgage on that right there. We got a 30 year, we got a 15 year. Guys talk about this at the barbecues. And it's wild to know that most of our wealthy mentors, we could honestly say, we're talking about the wealthy ones now, none of them had a mortgage. They might have a Honda Civic sitting outside and don't have a mortgage. Why are we saying it that way? Why does it need to be said that way? When you hear the free society operating and then you hear the debt society. Oh no, Trust Christian involved. I'm trying to give me a house because that's my badge of honor. That's when I know I made it. I got me a house with a mortgage on it. That's my badge. That's my title. I'm a homeowner. I pay homeowners insurance. I'm a homeowner. This is what they say, right? But they got a mortgage, right? They got a mortgage. People bragging about mortgages, debt instruments. Some probably make it work for them in a great way. From the general population standpoint, we're just talking word to the wise. We understand the basic elements of it, and if you don't, then you understand you might be in a quagmire. Simple as that. How did I get caught in this situation? Here we go. You ready? People say, I didn't really read the contract. I didn't take the time to really read it. Oh, we've heard that for years. But they got public internet. They got public TV. And that's why they publicly programmed. And that's why they focused on the public trust. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listen to replay. This is The Vault, episode 474. Your government trust. Appreciate you for tuning in live, listen to replay. Feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com for trustee training. We can go through what we've gone through in more detail. We work with families for many years now. And the government trust stuff, hey, we're not having a finance conversation as far as giving advice or legal advice, but hey, somebody's got to have it. The conversation is many people say I don't want it, but they're kind of scared. That's the fear in the universe. So if you're operating from fear, oh, half stepping comes for sure. But many try to come in confidence. Oh, I don't want to do it. And then what did the mentor say? Well, you're not going to get a loan for school or something, a mortgage or something. Oh, debt. Why? Because when I'm operating in the private, I'm operating in equity. I gotta build something. I gotta create something. I have to operate in a specific capacity because I'm a not you, whether you want to call yourself a fiduciary, you're a servant. You're a servant leader, as they like to call themselves nowadays. Right. Appreciate you for tuning in live, listen, replay. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Peace and joy.